I don't know if we're on. Buenos Aires, there we are. We hate to disrupt that, but if we can all head to our seats, we'd like to get this session going because it's one of our, well, I don't want to put any priorities, but this is going to be a great session, so you'll want to be here and you want to pay attention to this, absolutely. Our panel has the dubious task of keeping you all engaged and awake just before a cocktail reception and stuff, but we've put together a panel here that I have no doubt will be able to do that for all of you. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Oh, sorry. Hello, I hope that's better. Quick housekeeping notes. After this session, we're going to have the Penske-hosted gala dinner, which is at San Cipolito, which is not so far. It's on Reforma and Hidalgo, but we will have coaches leaving from out front of the hotel. If anybody has their own car or wants to travel separately and doesn't know where it is, there are maps and directions at the registration desk. Can I also please ask, I know that the Secretary of the Economy said that if you want to be part of the automotive industry in the 21st century, you need to speak Spanish, but we will need your headsets back at the end of the day. I assure you, this is not the route to speak Spanish if you don't. They won't work outside of the conference, and we do need to charge the batteries overnight before tomorrow. So I think you would have given a business card to the desk outside, and so if you can just please return them after this session, we'd appreciate that. Okay, well, on to this session now, which we've titled, What is World-Class Logistics? The requirements and developments of a world-class logistics market to, from, and in Mexico. I guess we might start with sort of assessing if Mexico is, or at a world-class level. This is a hard thing to judge, but if you look at I think the World Bank's Logistics Performance Index. It's a couple of years old now. I think it's 2014. So I guess a new one will probably be coming out this year. But Mexico is currently ranked 50th behind Panama, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Vietnam, and Saudi Arabia. But thankfully, it's ahead of such automotive behemoths as Malta and Bahrain. So we're maybe not in the best company there. But I would probably say, and I'm sure most people in this room would agree, that that's not necessarily a ranking that reflects the automotive industry, thanks to the integration in NAFTA and the very strong investment and developments. I think that logistics in Mexico are certainly at a higher level than that would reflect, perhaps across other parts of the economy. And that's probably because it has to. I mean, the automotive supply chain is one of the most complex in the world, as I don't have to explain to you. And we will be hearing from some of our speakers talking about managing supply chains that start many continents away, whether in Germany or Asia, and of course across NAFTA, including in Mexico, but also many times across the border. And I think, again, it's imperative. It's an imperative for OEM or Tier 1 logistic managers and the logistics providers to make this world class. There's a very famous quote, and I'm certainly not the first to point to it at one of our conferences. I think that might have been Peter Weiss, who's a longtime logistic veteran at Chrysler and now head of supply chain in Europe at FCA. It's Alexander the Great who said, "My logisticians are a humorless lot. They know if my campaign fails, they're the first ones I will slay." So I think, not to set too grim a tone for our panel, but they know that the pressure in the automotive industry is supreme and the requirements are as high as anywhere. And obviously logistics have to match that. I want to introduce our panel to you because I think it's really very special to get the opportunity to hear from, well, both OEMs and logistics providers, but perhaps particularly in the context of greenfield operations. Obviously, outside of China, there's not too many opportunities for these, and Mexico is a shining example. That's why we're very, very glad to have Karl-Friedrich Koch, Vice President of Production Control and Logistics for the upcoming San Luis Potosi plant for BMW. We'll also hear from Peter Koltai, who's the Director of Production Control and Logistics at AUDI Mexico, which of course is in ramp-up phase for its new plant in the state of Puebla. And again, the logistics providers that help make this happen. We have Darcee Scavone, Vice President and General Manager of Automotive, Aerospace, and Industrial Operations for Ryder, and Sharon Gray, Global Director of Automotive Key Accounts for CHEP. So we've got a really good balance of presenters here. I don't want to take any more of their time because everyone has some very interesting slides to share with you, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. So without further ado, Karl-Friedrich.
Thank you. Buenas tardes, estimados señores.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to apologize because I will give my presentation in English. Gracias.
Thank you very much for the opportunity of being here and having the chance to give you a short overview about what we are doing in the new plant building up in San Luis Potosi. I personally, I'm pretty new in that project. Roughly 6 months ago, I took over the responsibility to build up the entire logistics function for this plant. Still located in Munich, but very optimistic and looking forward to move over to San Luis Potosi by the end of this year. Let's start the presentation with a short overview about just 2 pages only for BMW. BMW is for roughly now 10 years #1 for the premium automotive manufacturers. We are growing in between 6 to 10% annually, and with huge investments and further innovations, a huge variety of premium cars and customer services, we also intend to do so, continue so for the next 10 years. Overall, you see here the figures. We are producing roughly 2.2 million or 2.25 million cars per year, ramping up 6%. Next year, similar amount higher. Besides that, we are glad to have in a few days 100 years annual celebration worldwide, all over, and really looking forward to celebrate that. Coming to Mexico, I think Mexico is for BMW Group an ideal location to enlarge its premium car production network. Originally focused in Europe or Germany, we have still strong sales in Europe, but we have at least the same capacity there to cope with the demand. As already mentioned in some presentations ago, the growth is in Asia and the growth is in NAFTA regions. We built roughly 5 years ago a huge new plant in China, and within the upcoming years, we enlarged drastically our capacity of the existing plant in Spartanburg up to 450,000 units per year. Then in 2 years' time, Spartanburg will be the biggest car plant of BMW worldwide. And we are investing roughly $1 billion in a brand new plant, San Luis Potosi, starting production at the beginning of 2019, and having an annual capacity at the beginning of 150,000 units a year. First of all, to say, for the new plant, we have the same requirements with regard to quality of the cars to come from it, the same requirements with regard to complexity and variations of the car as any other BMW plant worldwide. And since it's the newest BMW plant at that time, we really have the focus to have the most innovative, sustainable, most efficient, and most competitive car plant within the BMW Group, and of course also in a benchmark worldwide. Starting first, maybe, or second, with 4 charts giving you a little bit of overview about the concept of the plant we're building up. It is a huge area of 3 square kilometers, so 2 kilometers on the one side, 1.5 kilometers on the other side, where we built up this plant. Here you see a rendering of the initial stage. And the first really issue was that we wanted to have straight value streams, inbound material, body and white, and outbound finished cars. You see on the top the parts supply with the logistics. We have roughly 100 dock doors for warehouse on wheels on the sides of this assembly. The cars coming out in the south of the finish. They are parked in the south in the finished car park area. A high share of the finished cars will then be outbounded via railroad. A minor percentage via trucks. The body in white, for our logistics view, it's just one part number coming from the site, also in a straight value stream. Second issue for the concept of the plant itself was the separation of the traffic flows. Employees, parts supply, and finished cars won't at any time intersect to each other, minimizing the risk of personal hazards or also damages to material or finished cars. And this will remain stable. Third issue on the basic principle, fixed points, service areas, and the center administration, we have one point in the middle, and everything else is really at the boundaries of the plant, so no interference with further growth. That will give us huge and well-defined expansion areas for future growth and technology innovations. So we are sure that we can really drastically ramp up volume production within the existing plant. And all we know about innovations of the upcoming 10, 20 years to come, we can also cope with that with regard to car architecture and innovations to come. And this is as it looked like at the moment. A lot of groundwork under preparation. Up to now, 3.5 million of cubic meters of sand and stone has been moved, so flattened the surface. By June of 2016, we'll have a formal procedure for starting the construction. Coming to the third part of my presentation, as we already know, and you've heard it several times, Mexico has a strong reputation and a long time experience in car production. So what are the real logistical challenges for BMW building premium cars in Mexico? We have plenty of car plants. We see 4 major regions for that. We decided to go to San Luis Potosi due to time restrictions. I did not include here the reasons for choosing that area. And by the way, we do not want to make too much advertising for that, so that no other OEM like Ford may come to that situation too. Coming to the challenges. Premium may be compared to standard car production. I think the first challenge is the really demand for quality and the speed of innovations. For sure, we have to ensure superior parts and car quality over the entire global value stream. Parts coming in, cars going out. And we have to have process excellence in the change control. Typically, as any other car supplier, we have a product cycle of roughly 7 years, but we have made that changes 3 years, and 2 times a year we also have a major step of modification. 2 times a year we have major modifications included in the cars, and we have to control the material and the value streams about that. A second issue is the complexity and the variance. Don't ask me what is the name of the number above, but it's the theoretical value of variance you can order of a 3 Series. This is a higher number compared to grains of sand you find worldwide. So although we do not produce that many cars, we have a build-to-order process, and hardly any BMW is built a second time ever. We have to maintain the flexibility within the supply chain because we allow the customer to change the specification of its car up to 6 days prior to start of assembly. This is a premium customer service, but we in logistics have to maintain the flexibility. And if we later on look on the supply chain, we have there some parts coming 5 weeks over the transatlantic ocean to us. So how do we cope with that? And this, I think, is the main challenge for here inside Mexico. We have to maintain the robustness of the processes. So 6 days in advance, we define 510 cars per day in a specified sequence. And we build these cars in the specified sequence, and all the JIT parts have to come within that sequence. If we miss one part, and we cannot build the car, that brings us in hassle. Yes, we can cope with that, but our intention is to have all the parts in the sequence at the time in perfect quality. Besides innovation, variance, we foresee, at least for BMW, very complex value streams of the inbound material. This is a Sankey diagram of the first car to be produced at San Luis Potosi, roughly 37 cubic meters for the entire car. Roughly 67% we get of the volume we will get from within Mexico, which is good, and we appreciate that. But since we make a split module with another area in the world, we have roughly close to 4 cubic meters coming from abroad. And also this we have to handle. We have to keep the flexibility, we have to have the traceability, and we have to have the security that these parts will come in time. Finally, the outbound value streams. As you see on the right-hand side, roughly 2/3 of the production, which is scheduled to take place in San Luis Potosi, will be for the NAFTA market. 3% for Mexico, which is good, but we hope it will increase, and quite a lot of it to the United States. But beside on that, we will also make work models in San Luis Potosi, and you see also 1/3 of the volume will go out abroad, all over the world. Quite a substantial amount also to Europe and also back to Germany. At the moment, we really do not have decided entirely which ways to choose. I think it will be a mixture. We'll have the possibility with train going up to the central area of the United States. We have the chance to use ports and short sea track to the coast on the east side, on the west side. We are looking on alternatives. We are looking on costs, but as already mentioned here sometimes before, we are also looking about capacity restraints coming here as one of the OEMs in between 3.2 million cars per year to 5.2 or 5.3 million cars per year. So this, like for anybody else of you, is really one of the things we have to think about, and we have to look straight forward. Overall, to finish, I think the challenge for us is to provide superior product excellence, as you would recognize to have if you buy a BMW at yourself. But in order to maintain that with the innovation speed, with the complexity and the variance of the parts and the different models, we also need process excellence. We need the entire control about the complexity, stability and robustness of the processes, and we have to have the people and the service partner who can maintain these process excellence. 3 years ahead, we are striving for Mexican excellence, perfection, precision, made with passion by Potosinos. Thank you very much. Just as a short overview, I've enclosed a short 2.5 minutes video. Please start the video. Thank you.
One thing was certain. Mexico is the perfect choice for us. We are pleased to announce that we have decided on San Luis Potosi. Muchas gracias.
Quiero nuevamente agradecer a BMW por su confianza en México. Felicidades y muchas gracias.
So, muchas gracias, Dankeschön, thank you to Mr. Koch for sharing this very exciting, obviously, perspective on what's happening for BMW here in Mexico. I think that, well, for any of the logistics providers maybe who didn't get a chance to get all that potential business of moving flora and fauna, there's obviously a lot of exciting things to come, you know, when planning a plant this far in advance. And obviously participating in a conference like this, I think the message is pretty clear that BMW wants to share and learn from the experience which is here in Mexico as well as their own in North America and Germany and of course beyond. So we're very pleased, Mr. Koch, that you've come also with your team to do just that.
Thank you very much.
So thanks again. And now our next speaker, another startup, which is a little bit further along in the ramp-up phase, but nonetheless, I'm sure still has very interesting insights to share with us on that experience in Mexico. Peter Koltai from AUDI Mexico.
Thank you very much. Mr. Koch, it was very, very interesting, and I think you will see now in my presentation we are 2.5 years ahead of BMW's project, but you will see many similarities between the topics, what we are talking about. But before I start with my presentation, I was one of the 20% today in the morning who has raised the hand when it was asked who doesn't speak Spanish. Sorry about it. I tried already for a year now, but it's not a story of success until now. That's why I stay at English. Even though that I'm already for a long time in this project, we have decided in 2012, end of 2012, that we will build this factory in Mexico. Then I moved into the project, and I'm since that time responsible, or I was from that time responsible for the project logistics in Mexico. And now, since January, I'm already in San Jose, Chiapas, and I'm responsible for production controls and logistics. It's an interesting situation. I was responsible for the planning, and now I'm responsible for doing it as well. So there is no one who I can blame if something doesn't work. That's why I try to look always ahead. What I would like to show you shortly, who is AUDI, where we are, in which company environment we are. The AUDI group is in the Volkswagen group. It's the premium car maker in the Volkswagen group. And to the AUDI group there belongs Lamborghini, Ducati as well. In 2000, we had a production network with only a very few factories in Europe and one factory in China. Since 2000, now 15 years later, there are 17 production sites where AUDIs has been built or are being built worldwide. But it is the first time that a completely autonomous AUDI factory has been built outside of Europe without any partner, like in China, for example, or to use the production facilities of other Volkswagen Group brands. This is the first time that we came over the big water and we set up our first production facility so far away from Europe. This is also to show what is our target. Our target, or strategic target, to be in front of BMW one day. We are improving very strongly, as you see, our production numbers as well. And as our sales are going up, of course, we have to increase our production capacity as well. We have 54 models. We had in 2015 54 models, and it's clear that we need production facilities for this. And that's why we have decided, as a first premium car maker, to come to Mexico. But I'm very happy that BMW, 2.5 years behind us, comes to Mexico as well, because then we are not the only one with the requirements and with the philosophy of logistics and of production. A few words why we have chosen Mexico. We have seen many points today already about the free trade agreements that Mexico has. If they are 10, 9, or 11, or 12, I don't know, they were different numbers, but they are many. It is a good strategic position in between South and North America. It is an attractive location, and our group knows Mexico. So Volkswagen has in Mexico already a 50 years history. We also take many advantages of it, that Volkswagen is already for so long located in Mexico. And what we haven't had until now, as AUDI, a production site in Dollar region. We had many issues all the time with the exchange rate fluctuations, and we hope that we have done, or we are sure that we have done the right step. We have chosen San Jose, Chiapa. If you are from Mexico and you don't know where San Jose, Chiapa is, it's not a big mistake. It's really, it's far away. It has big advantages, but it's far away from everything. Later on, I will show you a few pictures about it, and I can tell it for sure that this is the nicest site what the whole Volkswagen Group can show you. The environment is beautiful. We are between volcanoes. One of them is always smoking, and one is always topped with snow, and two others, they are really very beautiful. What are the facts? We built up a factory which is beginning with a press shop, paint shop, body shop, paint shop, assembly, and a pre-series center. So it's a fully functional factory. And we also look very strongly at that we have a very environmental friendly factory. And we have also a very strong vision that we will set up also at our plant a facility where we can qualify our employees ourselves and to achieve the same requirements what we have in Europe or in the whole world about quality and about precision. Why are we in Puebla? Puebla has a good infrastructure, street, ports, airports, railroad. This is a center of the required infrastructures. We have many suppliers already. Volkswagen has many suppliers also in the region, and also has already set up infrastructures from the suppliers to Volkswagen. We have a very good situation about human capital, a very high education level in Puebla, many universities, many areas with whom we can work together. The labor stability is given, and safety. We have heard many times today as well. It is an issue in several areas in Mexico. Puebla, we feel ourselves safe. Why the Q5 model? This is a whole world production of the following Q5, what we will start in San Jose, Chiapa. We have a rising demand in the SUV segment. We have to reduce our delivery times to our customers to North and South America. And it is a major part of our growth strategy that we increase our sales numbers in the SUV part. And we have a bestseller at us, the Q5. Bestseller not only at AUDI, but in this area. This is a bestseller with our competitors. Why is it so important to tell it? It shows also what kind of confidence we had in Mexico, that we have taken this model out of Ingolstadt, which is the headquarter of AUDI, out of this area where we have the most know-how about automotive production, and we have decided to take this model to Mexico. We have only one chance. This project must be successful. We have the following milestones. We had a very long search for location in Mexico in 2011. In 2012, we have chosen the location. In 2013, on the 4th of May, we had the foundation stone ceremony. 2014, we have started with our training and education center. In 2015, we have built up all our production facilities, all our buildings. And in 2016, this year, we will have the grand opening and we will have our start of production. Just a few words about our plant. This is what you see now is one of the reasons also why we went to San Jose Chopper. We don't have a problem with floor and surface. We build now a factory which we can increase 4 times. As you see, everything which is dark is the structure now. Everything which beside this dark area you see, that's where we can double our factory. And the green area under it is the area where we can put again the double factory to double it. So we can have a 4 times bigger factory than what we build now. We have also set up a GIS supplier park directly on our area. It was also necessary to give a possibility for the GIS suppliers to be just beside us, because as I said to you, there is in the whole region, there is nothing. So we build up completely a new area. The government also sees a very important strategic growth for this area in Mexico, and they plan beside this plant a new city. It's called Ciudad Modelo, and they plan that they will live 250,000 people in the next several years. So this is a common project between AUDI and the government. This is the status of our plant in December 2015. We have prepared also a short movie, and I would like to show you a little bit how we have built up our logistics facilities. Please start. I cannot compete with the music, what we have seen before. I would like to show you a little bit more than just a flat ground. This is our logistic building, the A70. We were very surprised how quickly you can build a building in Mexico. I must say, I was absolutely astonished about it, how quickly we have set up this 95,000 square meter big building. You see a few pictures about it, how nice this building is. It's a lot of light we have in it, and we have enough space in it, and our flexibility is absolutely on the top to how we use then this building. We have, if you see a little bit also on the side or the view, you can see the big hills which I have been spoken about. This is one of the volcanoes which normally doesn't have any snow. That was the Malinche. This is how we build up also our GIS park and also a railway connection. Because one of our strategical, this is the Popo, as you see. We can see it all the time when it smokes. And if we do something well, then we get a sign of it. These are the construction works for the railway. This is office area in the just-in-sequence park, where we have 3 different buildings for our just-in-sequence suppliers and for our international dispatch. It is already at this film, you see very quickly how they built, but it was really very, very quickly built. And the logistics, all the logistic investments, we have done it with an investment partner. That's why you see the 2 different names. It's one of the investment partner, and the other one is the construction company who has done these buildings for us. all the buildings which we have built for the logistics, they are very similar to that we have a height over 12 meters inside in the building, and then we get a lot of light into it. This is the just-in-sequence supplier park with the little small halls comparing to that 95,000 square meter logistics hall, what we have in our plant. Yes. And now, about our logistics concept. As I said to you, this is the first time that we are over the Atlantic Ocean. And for the startup, we have 65% of all purchased materials from the North American area, mainly from Mexico, some of them of the US, and some of them from Canada. 35% we still receive from Europe, and this is a challenge, what we haven't had until now, because later on I will show you a little bit. It's a very long time that I call off some material at the European suppliers, and till that this material will be built into the car. And in this time, a lot of things can happen. So that's why this is one of the biggest challenges what we have regarding to deliveries from Europe. In Europe, if we build up a new factory, we set it just into a network of many, many factories. The Volkswagen Group has a lot of factories in Europe, and all these Volkswagen Group factories are connected with a network of inbound logistics. And this network, we doesn't have at all in Northern America. But we have already 2 Volkswagen factories in Mexico. One is in Puebla, one is in Silao. Silao is a powertrain factory. And we have a Volkswagen factory in Chattanooga. What we do now, that we set up a similar transport network system, what we have in Europe. And we start up this month already in Mexico with the first areas to work with this network. And in the next months, we will do it in the US and in Canada. Our production control concept. 6 days before we start production, we fix our program. This is the so-called Pearl chain concept, Perlenkette in German. I don't think so that somebody understands it in English, but I haven't found the right word for it anywhere. This is new in Mexico. I haven't heard that any of the OEMs do it in Mexico or like this. What does it mean? From some suppliers, we will not have a warehouse storage of the material, but we will send them this sequence, and we will receive from the suppliers the material in sequence. So if something doesn't work, we stop. This is a huge challenge for the transportation and also for the suppliers. We talk now with our suppliers for 2 years now about this concept. At the beginning, I think they thought that we are completely crazy. Half year later, they have remarked that we still ask them and we don't let them out from this concept, and then started to think about it really seriously, how they can give us this possibility and this kind of supply. We will start up with a few suppliers, and later on we would like to put a huge amount of suppliers into this process. Why? You can ask it, why we do it? Again, I will tell you now very similar things what we have heard about BMW. There is also hardly any Audis, they are built twice. You can choose an Audi as you want. We are very lucky as a management of Audi, we can drive Audis. And we can change our company car pretty often. Every time if I choose my car together, I need sometimes 1 to 1.5 hours, because I can put everything together what I want. Colors, different technique, different engines, and so on. And this is what our customers do in Europe, mainly, and they use also this possibility. So it means that for the production and for the logistics, we have products with a very, very high complexity, and every car is individual. How we get our material into our factory. Everything what we get from Europe, we get by containers, and for that we have a container yard on our plant. Everything what we get from North America, from Mexico and from US and from Canada, we get them in standardized trailers. This was also one of our first steps. We said we don't accept all the different kind of trailers. We want 53 feet trailers, and we want everything 100% through a trailer yard. And that's how we have built up our infrastructure. We have a warehouse directly on our assembly building, and the empties to our suppliers we send directly from the warehouse. As I said to you, we are the first time in the US, or in the North American part, and the first big difference is all the transportation. In Europe, we have lorries that we unload them from the side. So the whole construction of the factory looks like that you can unload the cars or the lorries from the side. We have here now in Mexico a rear unloading system. And in San Jose Chiapa, we have additionally to that a lot of dust, sand, and a lot of wind. So we had to find out something, how we can protect us from all this dust which comes there. So we have developed with some suppliers a system that if we have a trailer stopped on the building, we inflate some doors, and then we stop all the space between the truck and the building, and that's how we stop the sand to come into our buildings. Packaging. Packaging is also a very important part, which is a part of our whole strategy and logistics concept. We wanted to take the best what we have in Europe from the in-house logistic to Mexico. But in Europe, we have European size of packaging. All our equipments in the in-house logistics, they are for the size of the European packaging. The heights of the packaging are for the European trucks and are for the European people. The European people, this is the ergonomical study. The European people are 10 centimeters higher in average than the Mexican. So we had to think about it as well, how we can fix our equipment in the in-house logistics like that our Mexican workers can get to the racks and then can take the parts out of our containers. At the end, we have done a mixture of the European and the American standards, and we have created packaging with a European basic size and with an American height. With this packaging, we have the best volume of the 53 feet trailers, and we can use our in-house logistics equipment in the factory. We have heard about that packaging can disappear. We have had in this North American region a factory ramp up in the Volkswagen Group a few years ago, and my colleague, the head of logistics there, went absolutely crazy because the half of the packaging what he has sent out to the suppliers has never been returned to his factory, and he had really big issues with it and problems with it. So we have decided it early enough that we invest nearly 40 million euros for packaging, then we will put on every single packaging an RFID tag. We track this packaging. We will track where the packaging goes out, to whom it goes out, and when it goes out. And every packaging which comes back, we track as well. It came back from the supplier to whom we sent it. And then we can say, okay, packaging is home again. And if we don't get the packaging back, we know who has it. And he doesn't have it, we know also by whom we can ask a replacement for this packaging. This is a completely new technology. This is what we can start here only in Mexico first. In Europe, we cannot use it because in Europe we work with a network with all of our factories. This is a disadvantage of that. There you cannot really track packaging like this. We can start it here in Mexico. Our product is for the whole world. So nearly 50% of our production goes to Europe. We will use railways from our plant to get first out or FBUs from the factory. And then we have a transport split. 78% goes then by sea to the different markets and 22% on railways or on trucks. The qualification concept of our employees is also one of the major issues and one of the major points what we had to look after it. In 2013, we started to employ our first employees, and we have taken 600 employees from Mexico to Ingolstadt for 1 year or for longer. The key positions, in every area we have taken the key positions, and we have taken the people to Germany, to Ingolstadt, to Neckarsulm for the 2 major AUDI factories. And these people had to learn German first, and then they worked in the area where they work now here in Mexico. For those people who we employ in Mexico and then we train in Mexico, for these employees, we have set up a training center where we have first a 7 weeks training for our local personnel, and for the indirect personnel, a 5-week training. And after that, in the logistics, for example, we have a further qualification in a so-called Profiraum. It's an area where we only train them for all the operational processes where they have to work then in this area process. Additionally to that, we have started to qualify for 2-3 years long young people after the school for different different tasks. There is a system in Germany where where companies and the state together qualify people that after 3 years they are able to be a specialist in some areas. We haven't found it in Mexico, so we have to build up ourselves for our employees. Challenges. If you plan some packaging for some roads like that on the right side, normally then the packaging planner is always thinks about horizontal movement of the parts. What we have marked pretty quickly that we have to plan vertical movements as well. The topaz and all the different problems on the roads. This is a really big challenge. Our seats jumped out first of all from our first just-in-sequence racks, and we have found them everywhere in the lorry. This is a challenge, and we have to face it, and everybody has to face it. The long supply times from Europe, as I said to you, we have an 8 weeks vehicle program, production plan, where we say for the next 8 weeks on which week what we will produce. But the call-off, we have to send 11 weeks before that we produce the car, we finish the car in Europe. For the Mexican suppliers, we do it 4 weeks before. So we don't have a problem, but it's really challenging how we manage it, that we call off first and later on we fix our production program. This is something completely new. We work on it with very deep concepts, but this is something what we will face first here in Mexico. We haven't had this issue until now. We had a lot of help from the government. That's why it's time to say, or that's the right place to say also thank you for the government. We had many incentives, and these incentives are nearly all done, and they are nearly all ready and ready for function in this area. And last but not the least, the challenges that we are facing now at the moment and where we still do not have a final answer. The limited capacity at Veracruz Port, it's really an issue. We have limited parking lots, limited rail infrastructure. We have heard today from the Automotive Association from Mexico about lights in the night. We have same issues in Veracruz. We would like to start a third shift to unload carts, but we are still not getting along with it. And the limited berth availability for this, Veracruz has to increase and has to build a new port facility. We see also that we have a limited transport capacity for FBUs, limited rail car equipment and limited truck equipment, and we are not the only one on the market that they are searching for this capacity. So we see that the prices are going up, and it's not that easy to get the right amount of capacity for this area. We have a challenging media connections. I think it's a little bit stronger in San Jose, Chiapa than maybe at other areas of Mexico. But the telecommunication on site, the mobile phone, we use also for example, for the control of our for trailer yard movements. We need it, but it has to be improved. And the electricity supply in the industrial areas has to get improved. And also we are nearly ready with our factory. Now we have all the issues with the rework at the different buildings. That takes many time and energy, and that's not that easy always to get a final solution for the right time. So, hola Mexico, aquí estamos AUDI. We are there and we are very happy, and we are looking forward to the end of this year when we start with the serial production of our Q5. Thank you very much.
Okay, many thanks again, Peter, for that, again, very comprehensive and very fascinating look at AUDI's development in Mexico over the last couple of years and for its plans coming up this year. And you might have noticed a couple of friendly competitive jibes going back and forth between Audi and BMW. I think, I'm not going to take a position on who's going to win the race, but I think I will compliment both, because I think that by sharing this sort of information with all of you, it shows that perhaps logistics isn't the area that they're going to be competing so much on, and that there's scope to share information and intelligence and other things as well. On regard to speaking Spanish, I think, the Mexicans, they spoil us. Whether we're speaking English, they learn English. If you go to Puebla, they learn German. So I'm not sure about a Bavarian dialect, though. I think that might be a bit too much to ask even for them. And I do hope that volcano stays beautiful in the distance, and that in 1,000 years we don't look at San Jose Chiapa like a Pompeii, where it's just sort of frozen auto production in time. But I'm sure Audi has that long-term view and plan and thought at least 1,000 years in advance. So No, but seriously, thanks again very much to both of you and for that presentation, Peter. Next up, I'm glad to invite one of the most significant, important logistics providers in North America and indeed in Ryder, and indeed in Mexico with Ryder. So Darcee Scavone from Ryder.
So good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. So after I was asked to speak at this conference, I spent some time thinking about how I would answer the question that was posed to me. The question was, what is world-class logistics? So I went to my usual sources. I Googled it, right? I went to Wikipedia. My daughter told me I shouldn't tell you I went to Wikipedia, but I did go to Wikipedia. And I found a definition for logistics that I've seen many times and I think we can all pretty much relate to. So logistics can be defined as the right part or SKU in the right place, in the right quantities, at the right price, at the right time. But what constitutes world class? Is it 90% or greater logistics efficiency? Is it a certain cost? Is it the lowest cost? Is it great cube? Is it 99% on-time delivery? Is it some combination of all of these? Gracias. That's my Spanish right there. I believe the definition of world-class logistics is constantly changing and therefore hard to nail down and define. There are so many variables in automotive supply chains today. Think about it. Automotive supply chains are dependent upon economics, infrastructure, capacity, the ever-changing demand, the ever-changing supply, labor disruptions, quality, the notorious weather, and geopolitical issues at a minimum. What was world-class today may not be world-class next quarter, next month, or even, frankly, next week. So world-class logistics requires planning, but yet flexibility. It requires visibility to and constantly mining and analyzing data for faster and cheaper ways of moving product. It requires relentless innovation. It is a continual journey, not a destination. It's not a design and done. So today, I'd like to share with you some of the challenges of developing world-class logistics in the US and Mexico supply chain and some of the solutions that we've proposed for those challenges. So the first challenge that we can talk about is there is typically a lack of centralized part and packaging data at our clients, which makes it difficult to build loads and maximize cube. I would encourage you to invest the amount of time you need up front to get a hold of this information so that you can create a really good plan for every part in your logistics network. When we put this together, we engage both our customers and our suppliers alike to gather this information. And if all else fails, you will see us out on the manufacturing floor where a lot of this data can be found in our quest for success. The next challenge I'd like to talk to you about is the lack of door-to-door visibility, as multiple providers run different legs of the transportation here in this supply chain. You lose visibility to your loads at points of consolidation or dray yards. Finally, you have limited or spotty visibility many times to your load while in transit in Mexico. What can be done? You can integrate multiple GPS providers to your transportation management system. You can design multi-leg routes with multi-leg updates. And finally, you can outsource to a 3PL with boots on the ground to take on the role of a border manager to coordinate the efforts across all of your stakeholders. The next challenge. Prioritization of critical inventory is difficult given lack of visibility arising from the use of multiple providers during transit. This difficulty is further exacerbated by limited bridge hours on the holidays and the weekends. What do? You can employ a 3PL to act as an end-to-end border manager, contracting or performing border crossing and dedicated dray services directly. It's a one-stop shop. We like to call it a one throat to choke. The next challenge is loads are delayed for hours at the border. What do? You can engage again a 3PL partner to ensure your carriers are CT-PAT, FAST, and/or NEXT certified. Your 3PL partner should ready your documentation, establish schedules, and your 3PL partner should understand U.S.-Mexico import and export rules. And finally, that partner should be monitoring your paperwork flow as well as the physical flow of the freight. Next challenge. The loads are delayed as the suppliers are missing their ship windows or providing incomplete, inaccurate, or late paperwork. You can ask your 3PL to collaborate with your suppliers. We frequently will host an upfront summit to define expectations of the suppliers. Believe it or not, your suppliers do want to meet your expectations. They really do like your business. We establish supplier KPIs and dashboards. We'll create a feedback loop with the suppliers and the customers alike. We'll mentor those suppliers. And finally, we'll repeat, repeat, repeat. Another challenge, the returnable container network here in the U.S.-Mexico supply chain is extremely costly to administrate and requires purchase of extra containers to overcome network inefficiency and ensure availability. One of the solutions we've employed is container pooling. You reduce your number of container designs using a very worthwhile source, such as my colleague here at CHEP. Your suppliers utilizing standard container types participate in a designed pooling process. This results in reduced transportation, handling, and number of containers required to support your network. Here's a really simple but true example. This is an OEM. Previously, the U.S. assembly plant shipped containers back to their Mexican supplier, while the Mexican assembly plant shipped returns back to their U.S. supplier. Under the new container network, standard container types are used, and the U.S. assembly plant ships its empty containers to the Southeast supplier, while the Mexico assembly plant ships direct to the Mexico supplier on behalf of the U.S. assembly plant. This drastically reduces the cost of returning empty containers and the numbers required to support your network. And one final challenge, because I'm between you and a cocktail, I realize, that I want to talk to you about today is security. We heard about it in one of the polls, right? So on an average day, the Customs Border Patrol seizes over 10,000 pounds of drugs, $650,000 of undeclared or illicit currency, and $3.4 million of product violating intellectual property rights. What do? First of all, increase your vigilance. Ensure your shipper and your carriers alike are certified. Invest in GPS, video surveillance, and access controls. Define robust, multi-point inspection processes employing drug-sniffing dogs for all loads crossing the border. In summary, there are many challenges in establishing world-class logistics in the U.S.-Mexico supply chain. And what is defined as world-class today may not be world-class next quarter, next month, or even next week. But OEMs and suppliers alike have a better shot at achieving world-class status when they partner with a capable third-party logistics provider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Darcee, for giving us, again, the view of a 3PL. I'm sure that yours won't need to be the neck that needs to be choked, but needs must be. We'll try and keep Peter and Karl-Friedrich to their side of the panel here. Our last speaker, certainly not least, because it's an issue that's certainly been raised by nearly all of our speakers already in terms of returnable packaging. So we're very pleased to invite Sharon Gray from CHEP Automotive and Industrial Solutions.
Good afternoon. I thought maybe I'd made Louis really mad to put me as the last speaker today, but I don't know. So world-class logistics. It has been nice hearing other people reference packaging in, even the session before, and then certainly AUDI and Ryder both talking about packaging as well. So I want to talk about that through that lens today on what world-class logistics would mean looking through a lens of a packaging company. So what determines it? For us, there we go. World-class logistics is the lowest total cost of ownership that is required for all supply chains, regardless of whether it's inbound or reverse, to manufacture a part or a vehicle and still have the lowest impact on our environment. So if total cost of ownership is a key ingredient here, how do we find it? There we go. Oops, sorry. It's a little touchy. First of all, we have to look at the part. What's the value? What's the piece price? Where are we sourcing it from? What are the line side requirements of that part? And then we need to also take a look at the packaging strategy. Is it going to be expendable or reusable? Is it bespoke or standard? And these are just a few of the things that we have to look at. There's a multitude of things that you really have to identify, but you have to balance that. And so you look at everything from this part, you know, and sourcing that part and the packaging that's required, and still try and get that total cost of ownership. Why is it important? It's important because there's a huge number associated with it. 2% of the total cost to build a car is all that's actually allocated towards packaging costs. So roughly maybe $260 a car. And I think if you remember this morning when Brandon was speaking about the number of units, I think there were 88 million units that were produced globally last year, comes out to roughly $2.8 billion. And that's just the cost of packaging. So we all know that there's other costs probably associated with it. So that's a huge number, and it definitely needs attention. So any of you that have, you know, maybe been in Lean 101 exercises or, you know, had some of those efficiency and supply chain training, you probably met Tim Wood, which that's the acronym for the 7 deadly wastes. T for transport, which is obviously probably one of the largest areas where waste can occur. Then, of course, inventory, is it a long supply chain? The motion, how many times are we touching it? You know, the weighting, is it a push or a pull supply chain? You know, the O's, overproduction, overprocessing. And then certainly the defects. What happens, you know, when there are defects that are caused? So if that's how we've looked at waste in the supply chain from an industry perspective, I'd like to introduce you to Tim Wood's cousin. There we go. His name is Crude Sam. So Crude Sam, it's a little bit more of a deep dive into looking at the waste within a supply chain. And so let's talk through it a little bit. You have the C for the capital outlay. You know, and it's not just that initial capital outlay that's required when you purchase your either expendable or reusable packaging, but it could be that outlay of cash that you have to come up with later on down the road, or just the operational expenses there are. Maybe you need to, you know, upgrade your fleet of containers, or lo and behold, maybe some of those containers go missing, like was referenced earlier. So yes, it might not be a one-time cash outlay. Then there's the R for the recycle. Once you know, the supplier gets the freight to the plant uses it, takes cardboard out, there's a labor cost then to be able to remove and recycle that cardboard. The underutilization of the truck, obviously if we aren't, you know, cubing out our sea containers or our trailers, that's a high area where there's going to be waste. The D for damages, if you're shipping in corrugate coming from the supplier to the plant and, you know, somebody didn't load that trailer correctly, you've got a really heavy box on top of a lighter one, you're going to have some damages, or you could have some damages. And then the excessive handling. Anytime you have to have a repack operation, there's labor costs that maybe they weren't originally identified in the whole budgeting process. Storage is always an issue. But I think the A for administration control, that's probably the most important one, because it comprises 3 things: people, process, and technology. And you need all 3. So you have your people that are in place doing the job, the process, so it's set up to be consistent, but you also need that technology so that if there is a deviation, that you have that real-time visibility to be able to react to it. One without the other does not work. So for instance, you can't just put software, you know, and expect it to manage your supply chain. you actually need to have the people and the process in place as well. And then, of course, the M for maintenance. So we talked about it. Let's look at a couple real live examples. This is a one-way packaging supply chain. You have your initial cash outlay of the packaging, but then also there's probably a repack operation going on after it gets to the warehouse. So then there's got to be those totes that are going to be line side accessible. So there's going to be cash outlay for that. If you ship it in the containers or in the cardboard packaging, you're probably going to increase the damages that could occur. You're not going to have the truck utilized. You're going to have to unload that cardboard and touch it one more time. Storage, and then certainly recycle and remove the waste. The repack operation, the administrative control, and then you are also going to have the maintenance and the return leg of that truck. If you don't have anything designated for that container, you're shipping air. So, obviously, very easy to identify that there's going to be waste if it is a core good or expendable type of packaging. So, immediately, if you go to a reusable container, you remove those things that are highlighted on the screen here. Are not highlighted, they're the light gray. You've automatically removed that from your waste. But you're not out of the woods yet. You could still have other things that you need to look at. The storage, the administrative control, and then certainly the maintenance of the fleet. And if you don't have something set up, you're going to have that empty trailer again going back. So really the message I wanted to bring was that regardless of what packaging strategy you decide, whether it's reusable or expendable, as long as you are having those total cost of ownership type of discussions and really making an educated decision, that's when you have world-class logistics. This is a quick overview of a customer that we had. This is really touchy. Okay, this is just one more slide looking at crude SAM, looking at one-way packaging. There was a customer, long distance, shipping from Canada to Mexico, shipping sensors. It was a supplier. They actually shipped it down, got the supplier shipment unloaded, looked at the sensors, and there was damages. But they couldn't just pull out the damaged ones. They had to look at all of them and recheck all of them. And basically what happened was there was 80% of their costs hadn't even been allocated. So if you look at that, they didn't have visibility for 80%, excuse me. So can the packaging solution help determine world-class logistics? It certainly can help if you have that total cost of ownership discussion early in the supply chain and across all departments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharon, again, for raising, again, these important issues around packaging and for using quite an interesting analogy there with the acronyms. I know we're running a little bit over time, or we're coming up to our scheduled end, but don't worry, we have asked Penske to keep the drinks on ice. We're not going to deprive you of that, but we do want to leave open some room for questions, because you've had a fantastic panel here. You've had loads of detail and information. There's lots of opportunities for logistics to discuss. So we would like to take a few minutes for Q&A. We will have some microphones going around. I can start, if anyone from the audience would like to start us off. You're thinking about those margaritas, but I'm sorry, I'm going to have to hold you back for a little bit. So I'll ask the first question. It's kind of a two-part, but we'll start with the parts to the car makers, both to BMW and to Audi. In terms of your approach or your planned approach for outsourcing logistics or for working with logistics providers, have you considered anything different from Mexico that might be in relation to what you'd use in other markets? Obviously, in Germany, there's Gebietsspediteur or the new logistics concept for the Volkswagen Group. Is that the kind of thing that you're going to be able to do here, or are you looking for a different model? So perhaps some insight.
So let's say for the entire transportation network, we adapt to the American or the NAFTA standard. We have quite some experience with that from our Spartanburg plant, but it will be completely different to Europe. With regard to outsourcing physical in-house logistics, we are thinking of a new plant, and also there we have in German plants a history of doing quite a lot of logistics with BMW personnel at our own. And here at Mexico, we are looking forward to give quite a lot more outside and outsource it to logistics service providers.
Okay, thank you. Peter.
Well, to start with the in-house logistics. Do you hear me? No.
I think if you push.
Sorry.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Well, who can read is an advantage.
Did you understand me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the in-house logistics, as we have to build a car the same quality and the same effectiveness like we do it in Germany, we have the same standards, and that's why, as a lessons learned from our last few ramp-ups worldwide, we have decided to keep very strongly the internal logistics first in our hand. We have given a part of our services or a part of our material handling to a logistics provider. And after the ramp up, we will look over this concept, and we will see if we have the same level of qualification and the same level of service that we have in Europe, and then we will make a new decision. For the inbound logistics, as I said to you, we would like to take the solution from Europe as a concept, and because we have already 4 factories in the North American region, we want to set up a very similar service and organizational structure than we have it in Europe.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, you see some slightly different approaches, but obviously open for change and some opportunities, certainly for providers, I would say. So if I kind of invert that a little bit to Darcee and to Sharon, in terms of Mexico, and you see logistics services, maybe comparing to the US or Canada, how open do you find the manufacturer base here to work with 3PLs? Is it as open as the US? Is it more? Is there room to kind of outsource more? And Sharon, perhaps particularly from the returnable container point of view in that sense.
Okay. Absolutely. We found that people are very open to working with us because it is obviously pooling is a new concept for a lot of the Mexican suppliers and so forth. So we've had good reaction to it.
We have found, we've been in business for about 60 years doing supply chain solutions, and we've been very fortunate because we started in the U.S., and as the plants moved in and new production was created in Mexico, they've taken us with them in a lot of cases as their partner. We've had a long relationship, they trust us, and they've moved us along with them, so it's been great.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions from the audience? It's about as barren as San Jose Chapel at the moment in the year, I think. But maybe another question from my side, both to BMW and to Audi. You highlighted obviously that localization will be important, but obviously you'll have your global supply chain. Are you looking much further down to your tier 2, tier 3 supply chain in terms of how that is developing? Because obviously it might be a little bit different, especially if maybe German car makers, maybe you have more tier 2s and tier 3s still in Germany, and the long-term impacts that might have on your supply chain. So just if that's in your considerations.
It is a very critical issue, and we look very strongly at that. all or just in sequence supplier, or all or suppliers that deliver parts with a high variety, the different colors or different technical solution, they have the same problem that we have. If they have suppliers from Europe, they are reacting very, very hardly on changes about production program. That's why, first of all, our target to have an even much higher localization rate in the North American region, and also for our suppliers. We look at all of them. We ask them which parts do they have from Europe, how many different variants of these parts do they have, to see also where we have eventually a supplier who will face the same problems that we will face now in the ramp-up phase as well. So it's critical.
Thank you. Karl-Friedrich.
No pushing? Okay.
That's easy.
I can 100% agree to Peter.
I think we need to push.
Yeah, no, I approved to push, but doesn't work.
I think we had it.
Okay. I am 100%.
Yeah, building plans is easy. It's speaking on stage, which is complicated.
Can I give it to you?
Thank you.
We share one.
I can agree to 100%. We have to keep track of all the second and third and fourth tier suppliers with regard to quality and with regard to delivery assurance. Basically, for ourselves, we are not quite happy with the 15% of volume still coming over from Europe, and we want to reduce it. And I foresee here a chance also for Mexican suppliers with more OEMs in the premium sector coming here, that we'll get more chance to source here.
And while I have you both sharing a microphone, maybe I can ask you as two German premium car makers from Bavaria who will represent a significant but relatively small volume in the overall Mexican scheme, if there is scope and room to collaborate maybe beyond your own groups, and or do you think perhaps, at least through your logistics providers, that you would expect to hope to see some of that between either your companies or other car makers in Mexico or elsewhere?
Very tricky question. Logistics is serving the production, so we have also cooperation in Europe in several areas. So even in Mexico, it's I think we can both help for each other much more, because the requirements are very similar and new in Mexico. It helps for both of us that if we increase the volume of premium car manufacturing in Mexico, because the suppliers, they have to change many things as well regarding to that, how they work today, how they produce and deliver the services today. We will be in touch with each other in the next time, and we will finalize and we will see which other areas where it can be possible.
Thank you.
Okay, let's say I recognize from our both presentations that the challenges are pretty much the same. And if you then include Daimler also coming here, and I think they also have a build-to-order process for all their variety, I think then you have the three German premium automotive manufacturers here in Mexico with similar requirements. Obviously, on the first stance, we will have our own looking tenders for production network, but if three OEMs are there with similar requirements, I think the standard will evolve here in Mexico. And then I think on top of that, I foresee quite a lot of possibilities to at least talk to each other and agree on ways forward for some limitations, let it be the restrictions of Veracruz port or other issues. We have the same risks, the same challenges to cope with.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your honest answers and as well as honest presentations. Any last, I'll give the audience one more chance. before I release you. Okay, we have one question. I knew I can count on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We got right in the front here. Sorry, in England they can't move as quickly as in Mexico as you saw in billboards.
It's much colder there.
I think it should come on now.
The same issue, no?
Yeah. Yep, everyone now.
Stuart McGilvery from Toyota. My question actually is, you spoke a lot about the need for the suppliers to become more sophisticated in order to fulfill your requirements for sort of a just-in-time delivery to your plants. Are you willing to invest in resources to work kind of in a consulting role with those suppliers so they can uplift and be able to achieve what you're looking for?
Absolutely. The first people we hire here in Mexico is logistics quality assurance. Roughly by the second half of this year, we will have 90% of our suppliers nominated. And it's not so much time to get into contact with these suppliers and really help them to understand our requirements, motivate them to work accordingly to the processes, and also train them, because we are to 100% dependent that they're capable of doing so when we start serious production.
Thank you. One of my departments is supplier management.
Yeah.
They are only engineers in it, Germans and Mexicans. They go all the week along to suppliers here in Mexico. They speak all AUDI production system through with them, all our requirements with them. They make all regular audits. They go together with quality assurance for purchasing parts and with our purchasing. So we have a really big team here from AUDI Mexico and from AUDI from Germany, who are just going through to all our suppliers. We will not achieve, or we will not get to all of our suppliers, because we have about 150 completely new suppliers. But we look at which are the main suppliers for us. And we have also the suppliers absolutely in focus. They build a completely new factory also for us, or to deliver us now. Mm-hmm. Those are the main focuses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thank you again for those inputs. Thank you for the question. We'll call it there. We'll leave a line under it there and let us get off to the gala dinner. But before I release you to the cocktail reception, please join me in thanking our panel. It was a set of great presentations. Once again, we're going to have a series of coach buses that will be leaving outside the hotel, starting over the next few minutes, leading over, I think, 15, 20 minutes or so. So please do join us. Again, if you need directions to go separately, you can get it at the registration desk. Thanks again.
See you at dinner.
Sounds great.